I've got a good group of salesmen, sharp, hard-working, think on their feet. Take Joe, for example. The moment a prospect comes through that door, you can depend on Joe being there to meet him. And look at that smile. Friendly, sincere. Then Joe qualifies fast. Gives his name, gets the prospect's name, and asks questions until he's established the prospect's needs in his own mind. How's that for arriving at a common interest? He'll find something he's got in common with anybody. This is a qualifying list that Joe and every other salesman on my staff know like the palms of their hands. But from this point on, Joe and some of the others simply flounder. I suppose you could say they just don't use any psychology. They need help in handling people, in deciding just what kind of person each prospect is. Well, with the great strides being made in psychology and consumer motivation, I figured maybe science would have a way to show my men how to handle people. It was worth a try. I called the state university. They told me that the famous birdwatcher and psychologist, Professor Heinrich von Florenstein, had done considerable research and would, in fact, advise us on just that subject. I contacted the professor. He said that this was his week for birds, but he'd give us a lecture on the scientific correlation of birdwatching and buyer psychology. He started out by telling the men that it's not necessary to remember the names of the various kinds of birds. Simply being able to categorize the types, knowing their habits, and understanding how to entice them is all that's essential. He went on to say,
"Well, now, the birds we are going to discuss all belong to the mid-seasonal shoppers family. They come in all colors, all shapes, and all sizes. But they have many characteristics in common, too. Now, let us look at them one by one. This is the cross-winged skeptic. Now, his pose is aggressive. His expression may almost dare you to approach him, but his folded wings give him away. He wants to be sold, but he won't be outsmarted. Here, the cross-winged skeptic in action. Now, he will listen and he'll ask questions, but your answers better make good common sense. His call as he takes flight is quite upsetting. It sounds like this. Oh, no! So, in making a presentation to a cross-winged skeptic, know the facts and don't try to glamorize them. He wants to know about economy, durability, and performance. In other words, feed him logic. And usually he'll end up eating right out of your hand there. Now, this bird-catching swallow has just said,
"This is what the wife wants, all right."
Now, his gesture probably means that he's afraid of being too easy. He wants to keep his bargaining position. Here is another bird of the bluffer family. It's the proud perching strutter. Now, his approach is usually distinguished by a jingling of coins. If he doesn't got any coins to jingle, he'll use the keys or other odd bits of metal. He loves to impress. Now, don't waste your time telling him how good the Rambler is. Tell him what he really wants to hear, how good he is, and tell him how clever he is to decide to buy a Rambler. Now, remember, if you disagree with him, he'll fly off at once, so you feed him flattery, huh? This is the nose-pulling nodder. Now, the nose-pulling nodder will seem to agree with everything you say. He nods, and he nods, and he nods, but he's also pulling on his nose. And this is his way of showing you that he is not interested in what you are feeding him. Now, here is the fast-fleeing phase-out. Has a built-in capacity for being able to phase out sounds he doesn't want to hear. You can always tell when the phase-out happens. His eyes go blank and glassy. And once he phases out, you can expect him to flee at any moment. Now, one reason for the phase-out is talking about benefits that just don't interest him, or maybe he wants to hear about monthly payments instead of total price. Well, at any rate, the way to handle this kind of bird is to change the subject, or change your approach to the subject. Just one right word can put him right back on your wavelength. Well, now, a species more rare but similar in many respects to the phase-out bird is the shifty-footed flyer. Instead of phasing out, this bird revs up for a takeoff. He shifts slowly, almost cautiously at first, and then he moves faster and faster and faster. And suddenly, he's in full flight. But again, just one word, if it's the right word, can stop him. And by the time he leaves, he'll be driving a Rambler. Now, the fearful watchbird doesn't trust anybody. He seems to have been born with an instinct not to trust automobile salesmen. He always thinks they're out to take him for every pin feather he has. Don't try to overwhelm this bird. You'll just scare him off. Talk basics. Economy, the Rambler warranty, a Rambler durability, and be matter of fact. Show him you trust him. Tell him to take the car home. Show it to his wife. Try it out on the highway. Never rush a fearful watchbird. Tell him to look the contract over very, very carefully and to ask you if he has any questions. Invite him to use your phone to check out the wording with his attorney. You can be sure that this bird has some reason to feel that your dealership, or Rambler, as a car, is worthy of some trust, or he just wouldn't be here. Now, the important thing is to feed him confidence. This is a bird that you can't handle. This is the beak-biting bee-back. He doesn't like you, or he doesn't like what you've said, or he doesn't like what you've showed him. Anyway, when this bird starts biting his lip and warbling his strange call, "I'll be back, I'll be back, I'll be back," you know it's time to act, and to act fast. Get the sales manager over to him, or the dealer, or some other salesman. Third-party selling is the only way to handle this bird. You've got to let someone else feed him. And finally, there's this bird. Fortunately, a very rare type. He doesn't want anything except company. He's pleasant, he likes to listen, and will take up hours of your valuable time, so treat him politely, but feed him later. But now, I have to fly, and so thank you, gentlemen. Dankeschön, Dankeschön, and auf Wiedersehen, auf Wiedersehen!
What the professor had to say can be very helpful to you, too, in the all-important job of qualifying prospects. It will be especially valuable in the weeks immediately ahead when we'll all be seeing all these birds. Birds that will be coming in flocks during the Rambler $3 million Danny Kaye surprise party.